everybody, Ian here. On this Board Game Gab, we'll be talking about counterfeit board games.
This video is brought to you by Meeple Times. Go to meepletimes.com to find many board games at buy one, get one half off. It's also brought to you by Game Booster, a Facebook group dedicated to find you the best deals on board games.
So recently online, I've seen a few people post that they accidentally purchased a counterfeit board game. And then I even have a close friend that did so as well. So I thought I'll make this quick video to just give you some tips and tricks of how to spot a counterfeit board game. And more importantly, how to prevent yourself from even buying it. Now, how do you know if you have a counterfeit board game? Well, honestly, it's sometimes hard to tell. Especially if you're not really in the board game hobby. But if you are in the hobby, you can usually tell by the quality of the components. The wood pieces, the vibrancy of the box, the thickness of the cards. If it just feels flimsy and cheap, it probably is, and it potentially is counterfeit. Now that doesn't mean that all board games have excellent quality components, because some definitely do not, but it is a good indicator that maybe you do have a counterfeit. And the best way to know for sure is to compare it side by side with one that you know is not counterfeit. A lot of times you can go to a local game store, or you can have a friend who has a copy of the same game. You can go and compare side by side, and very quickly, just by how the cards may be crooked, how maybe the punch board may be thin. Comparing the two component qualities is honestly the best way to tell. Now, the first thing to watch out for is most counterfeit games, not all, but most counterfeit games tend to be gateway games. These are easier games that have a wider audience appeal. That's because they tend to sell more, which means there's more of a market in order to have counterfeit games. Some of the highest counterfeit games are games like Dominion or Seven Wonders or Sushi Go. These kinds of games are just cards, so they're easier to counterfeit and then ship off to customers. So if you're looking to purchase a gateway kind of game, just take a little bit longer to check that you are not accidentally purchasing a counterfeit. Next thing I'm going to say is make sure you're purchasing from reputable sources. Now that doesn't mean you can't buy secondhand or from the Facebook marketplace or things like that, because I do it all the time. That just means when you don't buy from reputable sources, you just have to take a little bit extra time to make sure that you're not buying a knockoff. So that means some of your best sources for purchasing are actually places like your local game store or giant online retailers like Meeple Times or Cool Stuff Inc., Miniature Market, Card House, or numerous of other online retailers. Now, what makes these places reputable? Your local game store or these giant online retailers. What makes them reputable? Well, for the fact that they purchase directly from a distributor who purchases directly from the publisher. There is a line you can trace directly to get back to the source publisher to say that it is not a counterfeit. So anytime you're purchasing from a second-hand or places like eBay or places like Amazon, which I'm going to get to in a second, you can't always trace that line back to the publisher, which means there could be a potential somewhere within that line that they may be selling you a counterfeit copy. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean that they are, it just means that the probability is greater. Now let's go and jump quickly to Amazon. I love Amazon, and not just for my online purchases. I buy a lot of board games from Amazon. I can't tell you exactly which ones I purchase from there, but I purchased a lot. I know I purchased Heavy Hitters from Amazon. I know I purchased Scythe from Amazon. So I buy a lot of games from Amazon. It is a great source, but it's not always reliable. And I'm actually going to prove this to you by going down to my computer and showing you exactly what Amazon pages look like and show you how you can tell if maybe the source you're buying from, although it's saying fulfilled by Amazon, actually isn't an Amazon warehouse and hasn't been checked by Amazon and isn't actually from the publisher, but may actually be a counterfeit. So let's go down to my computer so I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so what we have here is we are on Amazon and we are currently looking at The Mind. And as you can see, it is currently $8.56, which is down from $13, which is a pretty good discount, 34%. And it says free shipping with Amazon Prime. So I'm going to go and take a few moments and show you some tips and tricks of how to, when you're looking at an Amazon screen, how to know whether it might be a counterfeit. Now, as I said, this is not 100% and counterfeiters are getting better all the time, but this is a good way to test. Now, depending on usually Amazon itself, but sometimes your settings, your buying habits, things like that. Depends on what you see right here as far as the price. Because as you can see, if you look down here, you can see compare with similar items, new, and there's 53 from $7.48 with free shipping. So there are definitely other items, other copies of the mine sold by other people besides whoever this seller is. But I'm going to go ahead and research who is selling it for this price and where maybe to get it from someplace else. So once again, you want to look at this, the Minecart game by Pandasaurus Games. Now, just because it says it's by Pandasaurus does not mean Pandasaurus is selling it to you. That's not the retailer. In this case, this is the publisher up here. So let's go ahead and go down here and go down to this where you can buy other like products, and then you can see $8.56. There are two sellers at $8.56. One of them is Amazon itself. That means Amazon purchased it from the distributor. At least I'm pretty sure that's what it means. And here we have Wear Me Down is selling it, fulfillment by Amazon. Now what happens here is Wear Me Down is actually an authorized Amazon seller that actually gives their products to Amazon, who then packages it and works with it. So that means that Wear Me Down isn't necessarily a completely true retailer of board games. They just may have a copy of this that then ends up selling it as well. But then let's go and look at this option up here. Now this is obviously the cheapest. It is a whole $1 cheaper, still offers free shipping. So you're like, okay, I'm going to save myself $1. Now in the case of the Mind, it's not that big of a difference because the Mind is already a pretty cheap game. But imagine if you're looking at, let's say, a $50 game, where suddenly instead of $1, you're going to be looking at about $5 difference. It could definitely attract you and be like, oh, this is cheaper, let's go ahead and buy this. So if we look at this listing right here, and if you look over to the right, you see this delivery column. It says arrives in a few days. Today is July 4th, so it's going to take a little bit to arrive, and that's because it ships from China. And then you can also see here is the seller. Never heard of, granted I haven't heard of Wear Me Down either, but I've never heard of this seller. And then you can see 65%, which as you can tell from these other reviews, that's pretty low. And not only that, they only have 38 total ratings, compared to this one that has 85,000, or even this one with 3,000. So these are really the sections you want to make sure you're looking at when you're purchasing a board game from Amazon. Then we can go and click on this, obviously. We can see some of the ratings, and I'm not going to hype on this because there's sometimes negative people out there. But you can also look at this time frame. So over the lifetime, they have 26% negative comments about them, negative reviews about them. But in the past 30, they've had 14. So they've potentially gotten better, but there was a time in here they had 30% people talk poorly about them. Now that doesn't mean they've gotten better, that just means more people have spoken out. So this is definitely something to look at when you're wanting to buy a board game from Amazon. Let's go and take a look at one more. Here we have Azul, a very popular gateway game. Now the first thing you want to see is obviously it is 42% off. It is currently $23.24, which is a very good price for Azul. So let's go ahead and take a look at this right here and see what this looks like in here. Well, you can see this $23.24. Well, that's from Amazon. Okay, good. We're good to go. We're good to spend this price. At least I am. I feel confident enough to do that. If you go a little bit further, sport cards, etc., they're probably a little more reputable. As you can see, 8,000 ratings. So they honestly might, if you're a little worried, they might be a little bit better choice. Just spend $5 more. You could probably get a better game. But this is from Amazon, so like I said, the chances are pretty good. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be not a counterfeit, but like I said, it's closer. This one, on the other hand, Wide Ocean, 73%, only 11 ratings, ships from China, and So that's something you want to look at. Now what you can notice is most counterfeits come from China. And that's because most games are produced in China, so there might be a Chinese company that stole the plans for a board game and just cheapened the components in order to sell it cheaper, and then they're out there selling it. Now that doesn't mean that this one is a counterfeit, but it is more likely, and so I would steer clear. Even if it's going to save me 50% more than the next price, I would steer clear. So that has been a very, very quick way to look at games. So your best friend is right down here. Never just, when purchasing board games, never just look at this and say, okay, I'm going to get this game. Because you may very well be looking at this page and the price you see listed here is actually one of these other prices, like maybe you see $22.99 when you open up Amazon. So you want to make sure you know which seller it is coming from. That is the most important, this delivery and the seller. Anyways, I'm going to go and get back up and keep talking about it. Now, this is not a foolproof method. Obviously, there are some very reputable sellers on Amazon that people who just buy from distributors and then sell out of the garage, and they could be on Amazon and they're perfectly legit. So this isn't a foolproof method, but by looking at who the seller is, sometimes looking at the grade, sometimes looking at different things, it gives you a better idea. Sometimes looking at the country that it comes from, Googling the names, it can give you a better idea. So, like I said, not perfect, but better. Now, why are counterfeit copies so bad? Well, honestly, it's pretty simple. It damages the industry. The developer doesn't receive the royalties from your purchase. The publisher who spent all of that time publishing, manufacturing the game doesn't receive the money. The manufacturer who actually produces the finished product doesn't receive money for the games that they made. And it hurts the hobby. Imagine if the first time you got a game, let's say you had Dominion was your first game, and you got down to the table and the rules were missing pages, or the cards were super thin quality, misprinted. Sometimes you were missing cards. You could have a negative experience because of those issues. And possibly because of having a counterfeit copy, it turns you away from the hobby instead of turning you towards the hobby. So I think that may be some of the greatest losses that counterfeits actually provide. So I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it with that. It has been said by publishers that the percentage of people who are buying games that are counterfeit tends to be very, very, very low. Minuscule in its percentage. So it really isn't a huge problem, but it's a problem that's growing as this industry continues to grow, as it has been the past few years. And as Kickstarters continue to just smash records out of the park, there's going to be counterfeit games that come with that. And so while the issue isn't as bad right now, the potential is going to get worse. And we have to be, as board gamers, we have to be diligent in making sure that we don't purchase board games. Now, there's always going to be a subsection of people who just go online, like I said, go online, open Amazon, oh, this one's $10 cheaper, buy, done. That's always going to happen. But if we can limit that, then the counterfeiters won't have the power to feel like they have to make another one. So, like I said, so maybe I'm completely blowing this out of proportion, and maybe there's no reason to upload this video, but I think if I can help that one person to not buy a counterfeit game, I consider this whole thing worth it. Anyways, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. I've been Ian, and remember, whether you're a heavy gamer or light gamer, always keep it fun.